Because I was literally just thinking about the fact, too, that you still make me say a tiny wizard.
Well, you have to. That's how you're introduced on the show. I can't not.
Yeah, true. But at the same time, you don't introduce yourself as Zachariah Van Sliders, a.k.a. Disciple Hard Rock.
In fairness, though, continuity, I have never introduced myself as Disciple Hard Rock.
Fair.
If you go back to the first episode on, I have always been Zachariah. That's why on the hunts, it's Philbilly and Zachariah, because everybody who's been watching this channel would know me as Zachariah. They wouldn't know me by Disciple Hard Rock. Whereas everybody knows you, Logan, and Phil by your screen names, because that's what you guys use to start with.
True.
So that's the logic behind that. If you want me to start calling you Neil, that's totally fine. I can switch everything around. It'll be like a slow step-by-step process.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I think that I would wind up saying AKA Tiny Wizard anyways, because it's just like muscle memory at this point.
Right.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah Van Sliders with Old Man Gaming, and you have decided, for whatever reason, to tune in to another Horrible Gaming Podcast. We're very excited to have you. This is episode 41. No one knew we'd be doing this long. Gone through ups and downs and changes, but we're still here. And but as usual, before we get into it, we got to do a couple of disclaimers and credits. First disclaimer is we are full-time workers in addition to this. So while we put every ounce of our effort into this in our spare time, you're probably going to hear my kid in the background who's watching a tablet. There might be a couple of audio glitches here and there. We do the best we can with what we got. As far as credits go, I want to give a shout out to Mark Bell. Thank you so much for all the original graphics you have given this and all of our shows throughout the channels. You guys can notice the Horrible Arena and Fan Traction graphics that he's added, as well as putting Neil, a tiny wizard, into the opening graphic, which is really nice. And then, of course, my brother, Nicholas Van Sliders, who wrote and performed the theme song that you just listened to, as well as the interludes, which is basically just a cut of the theme song in between all of the sections. So we've got to say thank you to him for that. And I completely forgot to give my man a moment to introduce himself. So with me is...
Neil, a.k.a. Tiny Wizard, hiding in a corner somewhere, apparently. Unknown.
I'm totally sorry about that, Neil.
No, you're good. I was actually, I was just like, is it just going to be a solo show this time? Am I just here for supervision? Am I like
you sit there and you listen to me talk? I'm sorry about that.
Nah, you're fine.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to our first segment, Fan Traction, possibly our favorite segment. This is where we talk to you guys. We read your comments out. We answer your questions that you commented on last podcast. We also usually ask a question out to you guys so that you can answer them. And then, of course, we decide the Horrible Arena winner from last week. So let's start with the Horrible Arena winner there, Neil, since that's a good place to start. Let me find all of the wonderful posts that I actually have an announcement to say that you will be the person getting the win this week, man. Yeah, you got it. Kev Too Tall said, Neil gets my vote. I play enough games that sim life events give me some interesting historical interactions. And then you won your wife back. She posted last night saying, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming on, Kayla. And then she said, also, my vote this week goes to Neil. I know I love Stardew Valley, but it would be awesome to learn some history through VR. And we want to say thank you to you for voting there, Kayla, and thank you for participating in last week's show. We really had a lot of fun having you on. So there you go, Neil. The crowd goes wild. You got the crown back. It's a back and forth battle now. It's back and forth battle. So yeah, and I'm very excited about this week's pitch. I have a doozy. So
I do not have much faith in mine.
Yeah, mine might lose people though. So because it's a game I would spend money on. I don't know that everybody else would spend money on it, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes over. So going into the normal fan interaction, Kev Too Tall wanted to say, hi, Kayla, with a wavy face. She says hi back, I'm sure. This is a week behind. Then Kev Too Tall also says, my never touch would have been GoldenEye from the N64. That game is so simple and pure. It was brilliant. I don't know what I was doing when I was listening last week, and I didn't get to comment as things came up. That's true. He did not comment last week, and we all thought something terrible had happened to him because usually Kevin leaves like 3 comments on all of our videos. And then Phil Billy chimed in and said, how did you guys not talk about the Naughty Dog Last of Us 2 shitstorm? Hopefully we're past a minute when I just said shit. I'm sure we are. And then I asked him and then deleted a comment. He must have seen it already, if he was referring to the leak or not. And then he said, yeah, the leak and how Naughty Dog was trying to attack YouTubers and have them shut down for even talking about the fact that the game was leaked and that people were pissed about the story and the ending. And now people are boycotting Naughty Dog and all that fun, juicy stuff. Laugh out loud. Well, Phil Billy, you're right. We didn't cover it. That's probably on us. We probably should have covered it. But I didn't know about them attacking YouTubers when we actually started recording. I don't know if that had happened or I just hadn't seen information on it yet, or we probably would have bumped something. But so all we had was the leak. And honestly, we've been kind of bashing on PlayStation or being critical to PlayStation for like weeks on end. So we just wanted to talk about something different. And we wanted to tailor some subjects for Kayla, who was on last week. So that's why we didn't talk about it. Just really quick. Yeah, the leak sucks. Naughty Dog shouldn't have attacked YouTubers. While I see the reasoning behind it, I think it was a knee-jerk reaction that they should have thought through a little bit better.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, I hadn't heard much about that story at all, but just the fact that the whole game, the Last of Us Part 2, is pretty much ruined if you're not careful.
Right.
It kind of really sucks, but
right.
At the same time, I don't know. I think there's a lot of different layers to it, and this could balloon out to a whole huge thing. But I think, yeah, it does kind of suck. And for anyone who's worried about us dumping on Sony, I think today we'll have a grand new target.
Yeah. I've tempered my reaction a little bit, but yeah, you guys will see later. We are definitely not going after Sony today. But yeah, I do think that they were wrong on the YouTube thing. I think what they did when they attacked everybody it was as simple as find everybody talking about the leak, shut them up. And I think it was like equivalent to keyword searching Naughty Dog leak and then sending out cease and desist to anybody who had it tagged,
Yeah.
Instead of doing the research and really realizing who was actually talking about it negatively, who was actually spoiling things. And that's going to cost them. I don't think that that's not going to cost them. But I think when I look at it from that point of view, I think it was just kind of a mistake on their end. But they really have some backpedaling to do if what I suspect is true. But moving on, Kev Too Tall was not messing around this week. He posted plenty. He also we already read that Neil got his vote, and then he also said they know how much the other is set to charge. The company with the lower price always waits for the higher priced unit to be unveiled first. I don't believe that for a second, Kevin. I don't believe that for a second. If they knew, somebody would have talked already. These guys are playing chicken. They're playing chicken with the price, and it's hurting us, the consumers. I do not believe that they like secretly know what the prices are between the two of them. Not for a second. Still, though, thank you for the comment, and we love you very much. Keep commenting. Don't want to alienate anyone, but that pretty much cleans up fan interaction. I can't remember what our question was last week.
That's because we didn't have one.
Yeah! Hell yeah. Woohoo! We're back to being horrible. There it is, guys. There it is. That's great.
Well, I have one because I was actually kind of thinking about it the other day. If you don't have one, all right.
No, go for it.
We kind of touched on something like this long ago in one of the first few episodes about battle stories. But I want to know specifically, what is the single hardest boss you have ever fought?
Ooh.
Be it fair, unfair, just how many controllers have you broken? How long have you been stuck on a single one boss?
All right. That's a good one. I've already got like 3 right off in the top of my head. Like, that'll be a fun one. All right, guys, you heard it from a tiny wizard, or Neil, whatever he wants to be called right now. The great Spoopy. You guys have the question, go ahead and answer it in the comments below, or say whatever else you want to say to us, and we will read them out. Okay.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Okay, so first topic is definitely going to be what I want to talk about as a whole, because the news of the 30 FPS on Valhalla broke. We need to touch on it.
Oh God! I heard that go down your throat.
Dude, I'm having some real snot problems today.
Ugh.
Watch out, he's got the Rona. Okay. No, I want to say, just like on a whole, let's talk about missteps from Xbox. Like, that's going to be the subject. We'll make it a little bit long, but that's going to be the opening and biggest subject.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can definitely cover the whole thing. I didn't watch the conference at all, actually. I think I only watched 2 trailers.
Well, I watched every second of it, every miserable freaking second of it, and I will say, well, we'll get into it. I've tempered. I'm not as angry as I was when I was done last week, but I'm still pretty pissed. So let's go ahead and get into it. Going in 3, 2, 1. All right, guys. So that brings us to the main topic. The main topic at hand is Inside Xbox from last Thursday. So just a little lead up before we get into how we're both pretty let down by it. We're not even just talking about Inside Xbox. We're talking about some Xbox missteps on a whole as of recently. And it starts with Inside Xbox. Inside Xbox, they have started marketing the Inside Xboxes leading up to the holiday season as Xbox 20/20, and it's going to be like 20 Inside Xboxes that each one give you these big reveals leading up to the Series X. So they hyped that. They hyped this as a series. I want to say that up front before we get into the rants, because that's the context that I'm working with. So they're saying, we're going to give you continuous, really awesome unveils until Series X, and we're going to do it through these 20 shows. And then they said Xbox Series X gameplay. And that has kind of set the internet on fire. They should have never said that. Like, really? They misspoke. It was not gameplay in any way, shape, or form. It was all third parties, no first party stuff. They didn't say that until the day before, like a few hours before.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty miserable. And then none of the games are games that I would get excited for a multiple of reasons. But I don't know. I don't want to get too far into a rant without letting you talk.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I'm always long-winded too. So,
okay. Well, the other thing that really pisses me off is that I don't understand. I know that there's this, and this could just be me being wrong, which is possible. But I am so sick of everybody telling Xbox that their first-party exclusives need to be PlayStation games, basically. I don't want PlayStation games. I don't own a PlayStation because I don't want those games. I'm not saying that Xbox's first party hasn't been miserable. It has been, but that does not mean that you should come out the gate with a bunch of things that look like copies of PlayStation stuff. And everything that they showed at this Inside Xbox looked like a PlayStation game, a PlayStation first-party game. That's what it looked like. The Medium game, the Scorn game, all of that shit looks like really dark, narrative-driven gameplay. I don't like really dark, narrative-driven gameplay. I didn't come to Xbox for that. So while, yes, I know a lot of the people in the world do, I think you can deliver experiences that are good without copying play. I don't want all of the games to be just different types of games that we can get from PlayStation. And don't get me wrong, I think we should have some dark narrative-driven gameplays. I won't play them, but other people will, and they'll get very into them. But we already had some of those announced. I don't know. This show, for me, was a complete and total failure. It was off-brand for Xbox as a whole. They're failing to set their identity. The only thing I found entertaining was the Aaron Greenberg refrigerator joke that it opened on. And that's that's where I'm starting at. How do you feel about what I've just said?
Well, honestly, I don't really have much of a point of reference. I had intended on watching the show. I did work that day, and I was gonna try to have the audio going at work, but unfortunately I wasn't able to do that. But I was definitely about to watch it when I got home that evening. But your reactions actually kind of turned me off from it immediately. I honestly did a quick Google search about it, and I really was super unimpressed with everything. I wouldn't say that I was disappointed because, as we talked about last week, they already tempered expectations right out of the gate. They said it's going to be a lot of third-party stuff. I was hoping for a little bit more in the hardware end of the console itself, but we didn't really get anything like that at all. It was all third-party games. And even the stuff that did kind of look interesting from what I saw, like that Bright Memory Infinite, looked really cool. And then they had said, oh, well, it's made by one guy. That on its own is like, well, how long is this thing going to be?
Right.
Like, I can't sit there and spend, I can't even really justify spending like $30 on something like that, you know. And from what I understand, it's out on PC somewhere already, or like in development on PC somewhere to where you can access it. But
yeah,
I don't know why they would use the Series X to show that off. But I mean, the biggest glaring thing that I think everybody's been talking about in regards to this is the gameplay reveal, like of Valhalla. Like,
this is where I'm slightly more tempered as far as the Xbox is concerned. Not to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. I was actually going to give you the floor to say what you were going to say, because I want to see where your tempered expectations are in this.
Well, first of all, they said gameplay, Series X gameplay, and they said Valhalla gameplay, which I don't think they should have said. I don't think there was a lot of gameplay. The only real gameplay we got to see, which in my opinion, from just looking at the Inside Xbox without fan eyes, just like an objective opinion, I think their one success was Grid. I'm not Grid, Dirt, the racing game, and showing the actual in-race races, because that's where you're showing the hardware, that's where you're showing the gameplay, and I thought that part of it was very good. That's the kind of stuff you want to show at a thing like this.
Yeah.
So there was some gameplay in it, but there was a lot of gameplay lacking. Like when you say we're showing Series X gameplay, anybody out there is thinking across the board we're going to see gameplay from all of the games you're going to show. There was a lot of teasers in here. The other thing was nothing had a release date, but that's a different problem. I'm getting off topic. the gameplay thing, and the reason I'm tempered on that is because I think really they were trying to drive it home with, we're going to show gameplay from Valhalla, but I don't think they realized what Ubisoft was going to show until the last second. And while they're not openly arguing, I think there's some stiff words going on behind the screens, which are like, hey, you said gameplay. And Ubisoft is like, well, that was gameplay. And then they're like, no, it wasn't. I don't think they realized what the package that Ubisoft gave them until it was too late. And they had already marketed it for gameplay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of more on Ubisoft than Xbox.
Yeah, definitely. I think the big issue is the term gameplay. I feel like they tried to dumb it down for the general audience.
Yeah.
Because they in in-engine footage.
Right.
Which that's totally different. So in-engine footage, we did see what the game is going to be capable of producing on the hardware,
right?
But we did not see what would equate to as gameplay,
right?
And I think to kind of segue into another part of this, the fact that just came out that one of the big missteps I think that's happening already with Microsoft is they've hyped up the Series X as this machine that can run 4K gaming, 60 frames per second, this, that, and the other thing. And we've already got the big game that they've shown for it, Valhalla, as well. It's going to be definitely running at 30 frames per second.
Right.
Well, you've been talking 60, 60, 60. It's like, oh, well, no, it can do 60.
Right.
Well, at that point, what sort of circumstances do you have to be under to run your game at 4K 60 frames per second?
And what are we spending the money on?
Exactly.
And we don't have a price yet. If Xbox Series X comes out at some insanity like $499 or something, then who gives a crap? But I do think you're right. I think this looks really bad for Xbox, especially when we don't have a price laid out and there is like half of the populace. I mean, half of this show thinks it's going to be like $600. The other half doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, we're really divided on where the price is going to come down on Xbox, and which makes people worried about spending that extra money. And then you come in with Valhalla, which is directly attached to it, and now we're just finding out bad stuff about Valhalla. Not only have we found out that the FPS thing, on a separate note, we found out Valhalla isn't as big as Odyssey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not even close to as big. So like, and I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. Sometimes games get a little too big for themselves. Like Witcher 3, I'm never going to finish that game. I don't even know what that would look like. You know, it's just so big. But still, like, you're objectively comparing the next gen game to a last gen game, and it's already inferior in size, and now it's got basically the same specs for graphics. So I agree. I think it looks really bad for Microsoft, but again, I feel like the misstep here on Microsoft part, for that part at least, is tying themselves to Ubisoft in that game. I think they made them, and I love Ubisoft. I am an Ubisoft promoter on this podcast. Anybody who's listened to it long knows how much Ubisoft games I like, how I like their policy about sticking with games after they don't have great releases. Like, you can always rely on them to give it a college try. But I think Ubisoft has botched the whole Valhalla thing. And in the botching of it, Microsoft tied their boat to theirs, and now they're going down to them.
It does make me wonder too, though, if because the Series X is not like what we would identify as a traditional generation,
right?
It makes me wonder if it's going to come out with the specs how they are, so that way Ubisoft itself can sell more copies of the games across our current generation of Xbox One consoles and the Series X consoles. Because if they were to explicitly tie themselves to the Series X right out of the gate, they would make first Microsoft look dumb, because Microsoft has said that there's not going to be stuff coming out that runs on just the Series X for at least like a year or two.
Right.
So that on its own would make them look bad all around. But second, I mean, like I said, strictly from a sales standpoint, why would they limit themselves to one single console when they can make one game, one disc that can play across both, as opposed to what we used to get in the past, where we would have cross-generational games where we would have to have two separate developments of the same exact game. Well, it could be a thing on their end, marketing-wise.
And that's true. I think, though, that they've misstepped with. I don't think that that's stupid at all. I think you're completely right. I just think the way they've presented it has been poor.
Yeah. I mean, that I will not argue that it's been a very poor, showing and expectations. And even these next coming 20 for 20s, I think they had just said too that the Halo Infinite one's not going to be until July. So again, they've already shot themselves in the foot for the next one. What are they going to have to show that people are going to be caring about all that much when you take the wind out of it?
I'm gonna start calling you the Segway Master, because that was the last point I wanted to make on the Xbox missteps, and that was, if you're gonna set up a series of shows, like a series of anything for that matter, a series of anything, the first one has to hook people. It has to. If you're gonna have subpar ones, that's fine. Like 20 shows. Nobody out there is expecting 20 shows to be like world-changing shows. Like, they're just not. But at the same time, if you want to like market it that way, that's fine. But the first one has to be world-changing. The first one and the last one are the most important ones. It's just like a concert, just like a movie. It's just like anything. A book. You got to be gripped on the first page and resolved on the last page. That show being the first part of this 20 for 20, there's nobody out there who's like, I got to watch the next one. Nobody is. Whereas if they had brought something to the table, like they could have showed all of this other garbage that they showed and then given us a teaser for Fable 4 or something like that size big, people would be like, yes, all right, I'm all in for these 20 for 20s. But that one was so terrible. And then during it, they said July's one is going to be amazing. Well, why would anyone watch the June one then? Just like you said, why would anyone tune into that? You've already cut yourself in the foot for the June one. And honestly, you kind of cut yourself in the foot for the July one, because now you're basically saying that 20% of your 20 for 20 shows don't matter. They're throwaway.
Yeah. And that also further sets the bar higher and higher for July's show. I mean, we know that we're going to get Halo Infinite stuff in July, but like, people are going to start to talk too. Like, is this where we're going to get this? Is this where we're going to get that? Is this going to be the E3 replacement? Like, the rumor mill just starts going and going and going at that point. Right. And expectations keep rising higher and higher. That hype train can't be stopped until it either pulls into station or crashes into a brick wall.
Right. Just dovetailing onto this, like, this isn't an Xbox screw up, but like, I feel like everybody doing these digital like series things are kind of flubbing it, because Jeff Keighley, the Game Award guy, just started the Summer Games Fest thing.
Yeah.
And great. I love the idea behind it, but he's like, Summer Games Fest, it's like 2 straight weeks of reveals. And so like every day he's supposedly doing like a reveal of a game coming and then a quick interview. His opener is Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remastered. That's your opener, man? Like, that's the hook, is Tony Hawk Pro Skater remastered from 20 years ago? That's your hook.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Oh.
I was a fan of those games. I still enjoy those games. Granted, it's been a while since I played them. I was definitely a bit more hot on it than you or even Kayla were, because when I first saw that was a thing, we were actually out and about, and I was like, oh my God, look. And I'm like showing it to her. I'm like, I have it up on my phone, and she's just looking at my phone. And she's like, what am I looking at?
It's
I'm like, it's Tony Hawk. It's the Tony Hawk games. She's like, oh yeah, Tony Hawk. Yeah, I never played those, so it's whatever. I mean, maybe it's a nostalgia thing, but I mean, I kind of care about it.
Oh man, you gotta hate that when your significant other, you're like, look at this, and they're like, okay. You're like, no, this matters, god damn it.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna stop your stopping because I played Tony Hawk 2. I like Tony Hawk. It's the only skateboarding game I've ever enjoyed. I'm not saying that Tony Hawk is bad or that it coming back is bad. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is objectively looking at a series of big game reveals, you don't open with a remaster from 20 years ago. It doesn't matter whether it's Tony Hawk 1 and 2. The only remaster I can think of that you should open with is a Mass Effect 1. Like anything else is going to be just like, okay, whatever. Like, and everybody's excited about it. I'm not saying they're not, but do you, like, objectively, put nostalgia aside, objectively, do you think the best way to open a series of game reveals would be Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remastered?
Oh God, no.
Okay. All right.
It's just
that's
me.
What I'm saying. Like, I didn't want to come off as I didn't like Tony Hawk 1 and 2. I think they're great games, and I love the idea that they're coming back and being remastered. My problem was how, like, that's the fireworks show to start the, and that falls lackluster to me,
Right.
So, all right. Well, I think we've been pretty hard on Microsoft.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and move on then.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right. So this next topic I have been so excited to talk about. But before I do, I want to let everybody out there know, while this has never been a clean show, we swear quite a bit on it. We're going to be using very lewd words for the next segment. You might want to just skip ahead, because the ESRB, Entertainment Software Ratings Board, released the rating for Cyberpunk 2077. It is mature, 17 plus. Nobody was surprised about that. But they gave the rating summary, and I want to read it for everybody real quick, and then I want to talk about it. All right. So here we go. Neil.
Yes.
The rating summary. This is a first-person RPG shooter in which players assume the role of a mercenary named V, trying to make their way through an open world of Night City. Players can explore futuristic locations, interact with citizens, perform missions, and engage in combat to complete various objectives within a storyline. Characters use handguns, machine guns, rifles, and explosives during frenetic firefights. Also, there are no calm, lazy firefights. They are always frenetic. I want to see the game with just somebody waking and baking and shooting somebody. With humans and cybernetically enhanced enemies, players can also use melee weapons, e.g. wrist-mounted blades, enhanced limbs to stab enemies, and in some cases, dismember them. Combat is frenetic. All combat is frenetic, ESRB. No combat is lazy. None. With frequent gunfire, cries of pain, explosion, and blood spatter effects. Some locations depict mutilated corpses with open chest cavities and/or exposed organs / entrails. During one quest, players assist blah, 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 blah. Don't want to get into that. The game contains nudity and sexual material. Players can select a gender and customize various sizes and combinations of genitals. They go on to say that, like, people say fucking cunt in it, and they also say they have brief sex scenes from first-person perspective, all sorts of stuff like that. But the customizing and the genitals, we got to talk about this. The customization can include depictions of breasts, buttocks, and genitalia, as well as various sizes and combinations of genitals. This is the greatest thing. I have no idea why I find this so hysterical, Neil. So hysterical.
I'm just gonna lean in and just whisper a secret to everybody. I can't wait to pay $60 to have a fire hose dick. Like, I've already stated that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be as large and girthy as possible. And I hope and pray that there is a way to run around pantsless, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, so that's hysterical. That's not what even what I'm thinking of. I want like an average or slightly smaller than average size dick and just huge balls. Just balls everywhere. I want to have to roll the balls up and put them in shapes. Like, that's how much I want. Just huge saggy balls everywhere. That would be hysterical to me. And also, in the interest of like equality, can I make like a giant vagina if I'm playing a woman character?
I mean, I would assume.
Like, are we talking like camel toe size? Like, is that what we're editing?
I dare say I might even go dick and boobs.
Dude, and yeah, dick and boobs. Dick and boobs.
yeah, that. More of that.
Definitely that. Like, that's the first thing I'm going to do with this game is just like pick character creator for both different genders. Not going to save anything. Just going to play around with digital junk.
But like on an actual like serious note, like I'm cool with character creators. You know, usually you change stuff like, your jawline and like your eyebrows and stuff like that. But like, is there really a reason that we have to have this? I mean,
Right.
No. Let me change this. Let me restate that. We need this. We need this in the game. But do we like really need it? Like,
I mean, I gotta say, I am a little frustrated that this kind of thing is put in a game where you don't even see your character, your first person.
Right. I mean, I think they had mentioned something about putting in multiplayer later down the line, like a year or two after. And if that's the case, cool, then that makes sense. But I mean, yeah, you don't really get to see your character unless you're like looking in a mirror or something.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is, there's a lot of prevalent cutscenes and your character is front and center in the cutscenes, which that would make sense. But still, like, I feel like it's kind of lost on a first person, even though I'm still going to do it 100%. I will say, though, I feel like this is another weird flex. Like, I feel like certain game companies, when they get too big for their britches, they have to have these, like, weird flex moments where it's like, look at what we can do for no reason. And I'm immediately thought back to the realistic horse balls from Red Dead Redemption 2, where, like, they would get, like, smaller in the winter areas and then like longer in the summer areas, and they flopped around. Like, I remember telling my wife about that, and she was like, that's hilarious. And I was like, you don't understand, because you don't understand what goes into gaming, how hilarious this is. Because that means that there was at very least a 5-person team devoted to nothing but making realistic horse balls. Like, that's what they did. They went out to ranches. They took copious videotape and photography of horses with balls and penises flopping around. They took that back. They scanned it. They animated it. They programmed code for it to be realistic. And then they tested it and were like, no, the balls aren't dropping enough. They compared it. Like, there are like at least 5 people out there who lived and breathed horse genitalia for the course of like 10 years. That's all they did. I feel like this is one of those things. Like, look at what we can do for no reason.
I just imagine too, like some manager, some quality assurance manager, just sitting there with his big mug of coffee, just drinking and watching video of horse balls, and he's getting paid thousands of dollars a year for that. Like, he's living the dream. He's living a dream that I want to live.
And I want to see just how much of the custom. Can I put like my dick on my knee? Like, it's cybernetic enhancement. Can I just do that? Oh man, this is just the funniest thing that I have heard in gaming in so long, like so long. And what makes me even happier about it is this game is so big. Like Keanu Reeves is in this game.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves is in a game, a video game, in which you can change your genitalia sizes.
Yeah, it's crazy just to think about like he is taking on a role in games, which we've had that before, like people voice acting and stuff like that. But he himself is captured into the game and actually had say in the development of Johnny Silverhand. And it's like, okay, so now like it's a real role and it's opening the door to like maybe like next year we can have like actual actors and stuff like that playing other characters in games.
Yeah.
But forever in all of history, it will go down as the first game was that Dick and Balls game. Keanu Reeves was in that. It like trivia years from now, pub trivia. People are going to be sitting there. It's like, what's the first game that featured a prominent actor? It's like, people are just sitting there snapping their fingers. Like, what is it? Oh, it's that Dick and Balls game. What is it? That's like dominated the headlines about the game, and I don't think it's gonna go away either.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, if in 10 years people look back at Cyberpunk 2077 as the Dick and Balls game, they definitely did something wrong. Like,
that's true.
if they can't write that ship, like if that's how it comes out, like, you remember the Dick and Balls game? Yeah, that's expansive open world. No, that game with the Dick and Balls where you mess with the Dick and Balls. Oh, that's hysterical. That's hysterical. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yes.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Okay, so for our final topic, since we have time for it, we're just going to do some cleanup, some odds and ends, little discussions here and there. Leading up to what I know everybody's waiting for, the Horrible Arena. But we'll start off our little odds and ends with Nintendo. They moved back the Nintendo Direct, I think, to July. Is that right? Or did they push it further back from there? I can't remember the actual date.
I believe it was actually further back from there, I think.
So I got to say, I think this makes me nervous that Nintendo doesn't have anything in the chamber.
You know, I initially thought that too, but I believe it was GameScoop that I was listening to. I can't remember. They were actually talking about this, and they brought up a point that I didn't know anything about. I guess over in Japan, they really don't have the ability to like do work from home in a lot of situations because of space being a concern.
Oh.
Because everybody has like smaller homes and stuff like that,
Right.
Smaller homes, apartments, things like that. So they can't exactly take home an entire huge computer and set up with multiple monitors and stuff like that and actually have a place to put it. So
it's just the virus.
I think it is very surface level, straightforward. Like they just can't, they just don't have, because what is a couple months going to do for an announcement of something? Right. I mean, they already had to delay the announcement of their next Smash Ultimate character, one of the characters from ARMS being put in there because of
they could just skip that one, I think.
I mean, yeah, I think they could just, it's nothing but Fire Emblem characters and the ARMS that nobody's going to really care
just
that
want to
much
yell
about,
at Nintendo.
Honestly.
Stop trying to make ARMS a thing. It's not a thing.
It was a thing for like a brief moment, but I think everybody's kind of moved on from it.
It was Wii bowling. That's all it was. Move on with your lives.
Kind of. That's actually an okay comparison, I think.
I try. I'm hit or miss on those.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nintendo, they did announce a new Harvest Moon game, which crazily enough, I'm actually excited about.
Yeah, out of nowhere. They haven't done anything with Harvest Moon since the 3DS, and I think it was like early on in the 3DS also.
Yeah.
And I saw that the other day. It's just out of the blue. It's like, oh yeah, new Harvest Moon game. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, not necessarily.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just going to say, not necessarily my bag, but I mean, hey.
I gotta say, those kind of games aren't usually my bag, but after my love of Animal Crossing, like I feel like I could really get into Harvest Moon. I will say I'm kind of nervous to see if they're going to make their deadline though, because they straight up said they said it's coming out in 2021, but he didn't release any screenshots at all. It was like, but it'll be out in 2021. Are you sure? Because usually you show game at this point.
I mean, it could be again because of the virus and everything. Nobody has access to their computers, stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's not anything too insidious. I mean, 2021 could also be December 2021. You know.
Right. I would assume it would come out pretty late at this point, but I don't think that there's anything insidious. I think the guy's just getting. Like he's just like, yeah, sure, we can do it, and then he's gonna be like, oh no, wait, we can't. No, we can't. But I would be interested to play that. I am nervous. I mean, the Mario thing is still up in the air. That's why I want to see the next Nintendo Direct, and that's why I was kind of bummed it was pushed off, because I really want to see if all those Mario remasters is what they have in the chamber, or if they don't have anything. Because Nintendo Switch Nintendo has not almost outsold, but has sold half of what the PlayStation 4 sold in its entire lifespan. And the PlayStation 4 is the highest sold console in history.
Yeah, that is definitely a feat. I mean, they definitely got a bump from everybody being stuck at home, and you again can't find Switches anywhere. But right. I did also just see this morning that they're starting to have shortages on parts.
Oh.
So now it's going to get even harder to find a Switch on top of that.
I think still, though, like I feel like this is the year that they really needed games, and they don't have them. And I mean, I think they're going to get a little bit of a pass because of all the delays and stuff,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely outside of their control. I'm really starting to think that the Mario collection for the Switch is going to be a real thing, especially given, well, I mean, Nintendo's pretty crazy about their IP anyways, but there's that PC port that was being worked on for Mario 64, which now is starting to get cease and desists and everything like that. And file sharing sites are starting to get letters in regards to that too. But we did something like that too back with the Metroid 2 remake. There was a fan-made Metroid 2 remake that was being done inside the Metroid Zero Mission sort of engine they had for the Game Boy Advance. And that ended up getting taken down, and it was 3 months later they announced the Metroid 2 remake official for the 3DS. So I mean, it could be just Nintendo protecting their IP in regards to Mario, but I think that that's just another feather in that cap, sort of leaning credence to there being a Mario collection for the Switch.
It sounds interesting. So a little bit more cleanup. I did want to just touch on this, and the only reason I want to touch on this is like more than a handful of episodes ago, back when it was just me and Logan, we covered Riot Games. They're the makers of League of Legends, right?
Yeah.
They kind of did a foray into a lot of other areas. Collectible card game. Now Valorant's coming out with the whole competitive Overwatch style shooter, and then there was a couple other ones that they were kind of making games for, but Runterra finally came out on phone. And I am a huge collectible card game guy. However, I haven't played in a while because all of the collectible card games I did get into kind of let me down eventually. Runterra is amazing. I do want to just touch on that and just say anybody who likes collectible card games, it's completely free. The only thing I'll say is it kills your battery on your phone, especially if it's an older phone. Just eats it for dinner. But it is absolutely the best digital collectible card game I've ever played.
I think the only one that I really ever got into, only because I got into the actual card game back in the day, was Yu-Gi-Oh! I never played Magic. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, I never played Magic. I still actually enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh. There was actually last year or so, there's a friend of mine. He and I would literally play all the time, to the point that like I would go to take him home from work, but like before we would leave to actually take him home, like we would sit in my car and play through like 2 matches real quick. But yeah, I was really into that, and then I just fell off it.
No, I mean, I've always loved collectible card games. I have quite a few actual collectible card games as well. And then when they started doing digital stuff, I find the digital stuff so amazing because they can do so much more with the digital stuff than they can in person, like cards leveling up and stuff like that. But Runterra does something that a lot of card games that like it takes a lot of the luck out of it and puts a lot more strategy into it with the way they pace a match.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's really cool. It's really cool. The other thing that they do that I really like is like the way those games work digitally is you play, you get packs, and then you get random cards in the pack, and that's like digitally it adds to your digital collection, and that's how you make the decks. And then there's usually like a crafting thing where like your extras turn into some sort of thing that allows you to make new ones. But what this game does is it gives you wild cards in the packs. So like it'll give you like 4 common wild cards, which means you can just create you can just create like 4 wild green cards, you know, or something like that. Like, which I really enjoy that. It gives you kind of a lot of choice, a lot of player choice, which not a lot of those games do. And then finally, I do just want to touch on Ubisoft announcing Ubisoft Forward for May 12th, the day after the EA State of Play, which is June 12th, I think.
I was about to say, May 12th is yesterday.
No, yeah, not May 12th. I think it's June 12th because the State of Play is June 11th, right?
That sounds correct.
Yeah, and then whatever the State of Play is, it's the day after. I'm super excited about that. I'm hoping we hear about everything that I've been waiting to hear about, like Watchdog Legion and Gods and Monsters and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably going to show up there at some point. The Gods and Monsters, I've been curious to see what that looks like. From what it sounded like last year, they were talking about it being like a Breath of the Wild clone. I would like something in that vein somewhere else because I love Breath of the Wild. And Watch Dogs Legion, like I've just been super curious to see how that actually shakes out and how it's going to go. I was kind of bummed whenever they delayed it.
Yeah.
But I think I was about to say, I think at this point we might get a release date, but again, it goes delayed, and then, well, now the virus, people can't get to their work right from home, stuff like that. So we might see another unfortunate delay in that regard, but, you know, fingers crossed.
I think we're going to get Watch Dogs Legion actually pretty soon. I think it's going to be August or September. The reason I think about that is they already had a release date of February when they announced it. So, and the virus didn't really start until this year. So I feel like they were pretty close to the end anyway. So I think that thing just needs some polish. So I think we're going to get that one pretty soon. Personally, I think we'll get that one this year. I think Gods and Monsters is farther off, but I think Watch Dogs Legion is definitely going to be this year, probably later in this year, like August or September, like early holidays, early fall, you know?
Well, and then everything like this release year, I mean, we're getting stuff here and there, but this back half, like we talked about it before, the back half of the year is going to just be stacked.
Yeah, and I'm really upset about that. I can't be more upset about that than I am. There's just going to be so much stuff crammed into that last 4 or 5 months that there's just, and a lot of the specials that I do to get money off to get games, I can't even do right now because of the virus. So like I have no way to get these games. I'm just looking down the road like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like I don't know how I'm going to drop like $2,000 in the last and still buy people Christmas presents. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's not feasible. I'm going to have to pick and choose, which is really irritating because if they had kept to the release schedule they had, it would have been like broken up, you know?
Uh-huh.
So, all right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us to the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen, and the main event. That's what you guys, most of you come here for. It's the Horrible Arena. What is the Horrible Arena if you've never listened or watched the show before? Well, all of the co-hosts present, we, based on some specific criteria that we picked before the show, will pitch to you a video game. We will pitch to you the title. We will pitch to you the developer, and we will give you the pitch of what that game will be. Again, based on that specific criteria. Then you, the listener, get to comment and vote for whatever game you'd spend your hard-earned money on if given the choice. So, Quantum Studio, we did the Quantum coin toss. I actually got the number one, so I get to go first. Neil, are you ready?
Absolutely.
All right, my pitch. The pre-existing criteria, which I forgot to tell you a second ago, is side-scrolling brawler, much in the vein of Streets of Rage 4. And just a quick plug, if anybody has not checked out Streets of Retro, me and Neil do a Let's Play of that every Thursday. So here comes the pitch. The pitch is Streets of Rage International. What is Streets of Rage International? Well, it's definitely going to be produced by Datamu, which are the guy, and Lizard Cube, which are the people who made Streets of Rage 4. They did an amazing job with that game. But anybody who played Streets of Rage 4 can tell you the one real downside of that game is replayability. It's very linear. There are 12 stages. You fight through them. You can go back to them in certain areas, but there's really not a ton of stuff to do other than just take different characters through that over and over again. So, and that's fine. That's what the original games were. That's what it's supposed to be. However, we got that nostalgia out of the way, so we need another game. I think 4, we're done. Streets of Rage 4, you've capped the series, great. Now we take it in a different direction. We take all the stuff that we've had before and we move to something new, and we innovate the genre. How do we innovate this genre? Well, you don't play as the original characters. You create a character. Right off the bat, you get a character creation system. Then we have a very in-depth leveling system based on power, speed, how fast the character moves, techniques. You get to create the character from the ground up all the way around. Then what you do is you go into this game, and a lot of it is procedurally generated. You'll pick a region such as the US or Russia or whatever. Each region will have like 3 different base maps, but those maps change procedurally based every time you go into them. Same with the bad guys based on the difficulty level. Same with the bosses. So it's kind of a mix and match thing. As you go in and you fight through, you get experience to add to your character to make your character better. I also want a loot system. Not exactly sure what that loot system would be. If it's more than just like points to like unlock stuff or whatever. I don't know how we would do like weapons or whatever, but basically what I want is just kind of that constant replayability. I want to be able to create a character in the Streets of Rage universe. I want to take it from point A to point B. I want to have a different experience every time. I want to create that kind of like narrative in my brain. I think what you could do with this is endless. You could do like really cool in-game events. You could do really cool in-game flash stories like this happens in Russia and your character has to go deal with it. And progress through kind of like, instead of like the longer 12 episode narrative, you'd get these quick like 3 or 4 mission narratives, and then you'd finish it and it'd be done with a narrative. So you're almost making your own sequel to your game over and over again in the game. And then of course you get a 4-player multiplayer, which is the other complaint everybody had from Streets of Rage 4, is that the online co-op is only 2-player. You get a 4-player online multiplayer. You go in there with friends, you go in there with a posse, and you have a lot of fun with this game. So that is my pitch. Streets of Rage International, finished.
Pause.
You're pitching the same thing?
Kind of.
Oh, no.
Mine, I don't know. I think mine might have enough difference, but I don't know. Because mine was going to be, because Street Fighter originally started as, like, the first one started as kind of like a 2D side-scrollery sort of deal. But like, it was going to be kind of like that, but it would, I don't know. There might be enough there to make it different, but mine definitely had, like, a leveling system and shit like that. Fuck.
Pitch it. just pitch it. I mean, whatever the differences are, that's what people will vote on.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
All
we
right.
can't, like, in this moment, I'm not going to make you pitch a different thing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'll see what I can do with it.
All right. Going in 3, 2, 1.
All right. So my game is actually going to be kind of somewhat similar to Zach's, but my game would actually kind of pay homage to Street Fighter's roots. The original Street Fighter, if I'm remembering correctly, was a 2D side-scrolling sort of brawler with very crude mechanics as to what we know of now as Street Fighter, as the fighting genre. Mine would be done by Capcom, and it would be a side-scrolling brawler take on Street Fighter as a whole, but with a twist. So your character you'd pick from your main roster of characters who've appeared in whatever Street Fighter games, and you would go through a story. Each section, like a city or whatever, would take place kind of like a side-scrolling beat 'em up, in which there would be a bunch of dudes coming at you. And you can fight them in the 2D space like that. But the one thing that I think is kind of holds the 2D brawler back in some regards is there is some level of repetitiveness. That is where my game would change. So you would be able to hold a button down or something along those lines and then engage one single enemy or the whole group of enemies within a circle when you would be holding this button down, and bring them into a traditional Street Fighter sort of fighter, to where it would be a lot more technical, a lot more combo based than just kind of going in and hitting the guys as best and fast as you can and hope for the best. If you were to group in a whole wave of them, like 3 or so, you would fight them all one after another while keeping the same health bar, or just the one if you were to decide that. And the more enemies that you would fight at once would give you an experience multiplier, in which you can turn around and put those experience points into things like your blocking ability, your speed, combo ability, or your stamina. And then, of course, you would be able to take your built character online, and you can play either co-op with friends, taking out waves of dudes who would show up in whatever level, or you can just pit your character directly against other characters online in a classic 1v1 fighter. I think that I would call this game just Project Shoryuken, and that would be it.
All right, guys, there you have it. Very interesting 2 pitches coming at you, very stylistically different, even though they have some similarities. So you guys now get to decide which one wins and which one is you're gonna spend your hard-earned money on. That brings us to the shameless self-promotion. Neil, do you got anything to promote?
No, sir. Aside from Streets of Retro Thursdays, we have an episode is going to be going up tomorrow, and we actually have a little bit more of that in the works here soon.
Yes, he is not mistaken. We're going to be doing at least 3 seasons, though the seasons might be shorter. They're not probably going to be as big as like the Borderlands 330 seasons, but we definitely, or at least 4 seasons. We're very excited. We're very excited about it. But yeah, you can definitely check out episode number 2 tomorrow. Episode 1 is already posted. And just disclaimer up front, there's a lot of button pressing in it. You're just going to have to deal with that until we figure out a way to fix that. As far as me and my channel, you can check us out at Old Man Gaming DH on Facebook, at Old Man Gaming 9 on Twitter. Then, of course, you can join our Discord. The link is in the description below. Please do. You can influence almost any one of the channel shows in many different ways from the Discord. Just pop in and talk to us. We love to talk to you. And then for that, I think we're going to end the show. So as long as you guys keep watching and listening to this, we'll keep making it. And we'll see you guys next week. Pause. So that's Fantraction. I think that went really well.
Yeah. Fuck.
I love how we talk about how you shouldn't swear between the things. The first word you just said.
I know. Well, here's the thing though, is like I was just thinking about it and I had noticed that we hadn't sworn yet. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to do it. And then you said shit and oh damn it. Well, see there, I just knocked over my microphone and said damn it right there. But at that point, it's like the die has been cast. Someone said shit and like the floodgates open. So now the only hope for this audio ever being heard is at the very end.
Yeah, bonus. I had to get Rage Sushi in on that.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah.